into another episode of What's Bruin live. As we record the podcast, I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, the one, the only, the epic, the now two-time grandfather. Congratulations, Mr. Dom Tiano. How are you?
Thank you, Chris. I'm tired. It's been a long week, with one shitty thing after another, and then this morning at 8:45, baby Xander was born, 7 pounds 2 ounces. He spent a couple of hours in my arms today. Never cried once. A lot of people call me the baby whisperer because all they have to do is hand me a crying baby, and for some reason they stop. Um, so, yeah, a bit of a tiring day, but very, very excited.
Well, that is awesome. So again, congrats here. We've got Matrix jumping in. Let's get the party started. Mike's Good Music says, let's go. I'm actually free tonight, which is awesome. Welcome into the live viewing of the show. And Matrix jumps in as well. So, all right. RB's here. Where do you want to start? There's a lot that
Well,
we go over here.
let's start with the lousy week the Bruins had up until Saturday night. You know, two things you asked me, Chris. One was at the start of the season, before the season started, and uh, what my thoughts were. And at that time, I said October is not going to be a very good month. Uh, I stressed there were going to be some iffy moments, and what we wanted to see was improvement from game to game, getting into this to the system and playing the way Montgomery wanted them to play. And then before the road trip, uh, you asked me what I thought would be successful. Um, I said maybe 2-1, but I really don't care what the record is going to be. I just want to see that improvement, and we never saw it. We never saw it. It was
No.
the same mistakes day after day, shift after shift. The penalties, the bad power play, the bad penalty kill.
Well, in the
I don't know.
penalty kill, they are taking way too many penalties and just adding to, like, can they be better on the PK? Absolutely. We've seen it 1,000%. Don't disagree. But it doesn't help when you're taking 6 or 7 penalties per game. Like,
No.
you're just not going to have success. I don't care how good your power play is. Unless it bats 100%, you're screwing yourself by taking those kinds of penalties.
But what was the Dallas game? 3 for 3 at one time. The
That one,
the Dallas's power play. You can't have that.
exactly. It's just they're shooting themselves in the foot left and right. And I mean, this is the first time in a few years where we've seen their goal differential as a team in the negative. And I think that's causing a lot of people to panic. But to your point, we kind of looked at this part of the year as expect this a little bit. Now, were we expecting this bad? No. But if you had said in the first 10 games, the Bruins, or in the first 9 games, because that's really where they're at, the Bruins would be at 500. You would have a great fourth line that was going. You'd be working on building chemistry in your first line. You're still kind of sorting things out in the middle six, and no one's really, with the exception of maybe Jeremy Swayman, no one's really grabbed the season and just started going with it. Fourth line excluded from that. If I were to
I
tell you,
agree, but
most people would take it.
I don't know. At the start of the season, I said they might be a game or two over 500 at the end of the month. One, I didn't like the schedule, and two, um, I didn't like the fact that they have had no opportunity to create any chemistry. Um, I think what we saw last night, the Maple Leafs, was the closest thing to a 60-minute effort from this team. Uh, Even then, they had some lapses, but I think by far it was their best game. Um, we'll get into the roster moves. I'm sure that a little later to what Montgomery did and what it means going forward. But um, you know, if I can tell a little story, about a
Absolutely.
dozen years, I went to Mississauga to watch the Mississauga Steelheads uh, play an OHL game. And I walked into the media room. There's nobody there. I thought, oh, great. I'm going to have the whole place to myself for this game. And it was a nothing game, really. And I walked in, and who was there was Stumpy Thomas in his first year scouting for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So I sat down with him, introduced myself. I already knew who he was, obviously. And we talked some hockey. And he said to me, he said, when I got started in this business, he had a former scout tell him, or he had a scout at that time, who's now a former scout, said, watch the game, tell me what you see. And Thomas was naming all this stuff, and the scout's like, no, no, not that, not that, not that. And so finally, he asked me, he says, well, what am I looking for? He says, you watch the game like this. Anytime a team makes three passes, it usually ends up in a scoring opportunity. May not be a grade A chance, but at least a scoring opportunity. Usually, when they make under three passes, the play dies. And that's what we were seeing from the Bruins. They couldn't connect on a first pass, let alone a second pass or a third pass. But we saw it last night. We saw it on the one power play goal they scored. Um, you know, and
Yeah.
that stuck with me. And I think that's been lacking offensively for the Bruins, the opportunity to create.
Yeah, 100%. And as Matrix points out, three straight losses for the Bruins. They looked like complete shit. Never seen a discombobulated pile of shit in my life. But then also, we got to look at the positives. Two straight games with no penalties for Zadorov. So something's turning around. But
And he threw some big hits last night too, didn't he?
yeah, absolutely. And I expect some of the penalties against him to just be called because he's a big dude and he's still rounding out, kind of figuring out how to play based off of his size. It's just going to happen. Um, it just, I mean, how many stick penalties, tripping penalties, like, and I get it, you're going to get some, but they are getting way too many because they're behind the play interference calls. Like, it's just not Bruins hockey as we're used to. And to your point, they're not connecting offensively. They're discombobulated defensively. And here, the one, I guess, positive that I try to look at here is they're still 500. They're still very much in the mix. It's not like they're 0-9 and they look like this. So
No, and
it's
people
still,
people are writing them off already, and it's like to me this was expected. Uh,
I mean,
but
I just sit there.
every aspect of their game improved on Saturday night. Everything from the forecheck to the passing to the back checking to their gap control. For the most part, uh, they cleared the front of the net, allowed Swayman to see pucks. There were a couple of lapses, like the Matthews goal and the Nyes goal, but for the most part, it was there. And now they need to continue to build on that. Tuesday night they have what should be an easy opponent in Philadelphia,
You
and
would
they
think.
need to build on it.
Absolutely. We got Bear Force jumping in, and 10 Shots says they still struggled to close out games. Which, yeah, they gave up the late goal, go to overtime, but they still take it in overtime. And everything that what you're saying, Dom, that's what I'm trying to take away from the game. Like, you've got to be ahead in games on a consistent basis before you can say, hey, they can't close out a game. Right now, they're barely in some of these games. They're in the games because Swayman stands on his head, or they just catch a couple lucky breaks that aren't calls or something like that. It's they've got to figure other things out before we can sit here and say they can't close out the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, a couple of things. Couple of things I want to talk about Saturday night that really stood out. The fourth line, we've talked about it over and over and over again. That's a given. Um, the first line is really beginning to find some chemistry with Zaka, Lindholm, and Pasternak. I know the analytics don't look great right now. That was the most sustained offensive pressure that they've had in 9 games was Saturday night against Toronto. And dare I say that Brad Marchand and Charlie Coyle both had their best games of the season with Matthew Poitras on the wing, um, which just goes to show that the previous experiments were a failure on who to put there. And when we talk about the possibility of Tyler Johnson coming in a little bit later and what they might possibly do, we'll get into that a little deeper then. Obviously, Justin Brazeau had a good game, but that third line, I don't know, Frederick Geeky, Brazeau, something needs to change there. Um,
A lot of people are trying to put the blame on Morgan Geeky. Um, I mean, Freddie ain't exactly on the train right now himself. He's struggling too. So
mhm.
I can't really say, oh, it's the fault of Geeky, because Frederick got put up on that second line right wing, and that was the best line that line looked to that point. Throw Patra up there, and it actually looked way better than even with Frederick. So it's Freddie's not going, Geeky's not going. It looks like you're finally getting Marchand going. Coyle will get there if you can continue to get some continuity on that line, I think. Um, you mentioned the roster move. Tufte wasn't exactly getting the job done, so they put him on waivers at the end of the week. He clears, so he's now in Providence. He played in Providence today. Um, and I know you put out a poll after that move was made. Do you want to mention that real quick?
Oh, it was just a little silly thing. Will Geeky sign after 2 p.m. or will he sign on Sunday? Neither happened, but I believe the signing is imminent. Um, Otherwise, there was no need to put Tufte on waivers.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are calling for Fabian Lysell, and we're going to dive into him a bit more tomorrow as we talk about all the prospects. But he is not lighting it up in Providence. And I think it was Matrix had asked me about once we put Tufte on waivers, and it was one of those things where even to that point on Thursday, Friday, when they made the waiver move, I wasn't sure which way they were leaning. But I had the feeling they were waiting to see what Lysell did this weekend in their 2 games. And after these 2 games for Providence, I can almost guarantee you they're going to go with Johnson.
Oh, I don't think Lysell's been bad. I
I don't think he's
don't.
been.
It-
I'm,
you know, he's doing what is being asked of him, especially the last 4 games. He's
Which
doing exactly what's being asked of him. Uh, Flip it the other way and look at Georgi Merkulov, and he looks like he's already given up and is just waiting for his contract to end.
he probably is. No, and when it comes to Lysell, I don't say that because I think Lysel's not playing well. I think Montgomery and the coaching staff are going to want the veteran presence that Johnson brings with his signing. Now, that said, I think it's possible before the signing we see Lysell get called up because Providence has a little bit of a break in their schedule coming up, and you can give a good 4-game run for Lysell against Philly, Carolina, and Philly again this week and kind of see how he does.
You could, and I think Fabian Lysell is closer to Matthew Poitras than Tyler Johnson is.
Yeah, I wonder if they're looking at Johnson to say third line center for Johnson between Frederick and Geeky, and then Johnson can add to the power play. And yeah, Poitras on the right wing, not ideal scenario, but for this year it makes us that much better because Johnson really helped on that power play when he was in the lineup during the preseason, and the power play itself just doesn't look good, and he could add to that. Real quick, Matrix points out that not sure if it's relevant, but Doug Armstrong was in house last night. Is there anything to it or not?
I saw. I saw. Okay, you go ahead, Chris.
I'll let you go first.
No, you go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say.
So immediately, my reaction is general managers going to a hockey game. Okay, so what? But there's also the possibility we were playing Toronto. They're looking to make some moves on their roster as well. So do I make anything of it? Not yet. Not yet. I know Doug Armstrong wants to make moves to make his team better, but that could come from Toronto as much as it could come from Boston. And again, Providence played at home. So I'm curious to see, did he go to either of the Providence games because they're a short drive from the Boston area? That's what I want to know.
And here's what I'm going to say, because what you echoed is the exact same stuff that's been going on all over Twitter. Don Sweeney is the general manager for Team Canada at the Four Nations. Doug Armstrong is the general manager for Team Canada at the Olympics. Doug Armstrong is still involved with Team Canada at the Four Nations and is working with Don Sweeney and John Cooper and the rest of the coaching staff and managerial staff on who to name the roster. Doug Armstrong is traveling the NHL. It means nothing that he was in Boston.
I was going to say there's also that factor, but I figured that was the route you were going to go.
Well, that's the only road to take out of it. John Cooper went to a game. I forget. I saw it on Twitter the other day. Went to a game that didn't involve Tampa Bay. Why is he going to watch 2 other teams play? Because they got a roster to fill.
100%. It's yeah, good point. The GMs are with Team Canada. 100%. Again, if he went to see Providence at all while he was here, then we have something to think about looking into. To your point about Team Canada, this is going to happen all year. Get used to it.
It's not going to happen all year. They have to have the roster in by next month.
Well, I meant also for the Olympics as well.
Yeah.
So it just until they start scouting prospects, I'm not all that worried about it. Or if we hear a name, hey, Doug Armstrong came to town to look at player X. Okay, there's something there. Otherwise, don't worry too much about it. Anyway, moving along. We talked briefly about the roster moves. Actually, I will pull up. You had sent over your most recent cap projections. So I'm going to pull that up here. This includes the waiving of Tufte. And so now they have, let's see, roughly 1.1 million in cap space, which will accrue to about a 5 million AAV at the deadline that they could add. Thoughts on where they stand now based off of this status?
So they can add an AAV worth 1.1 million bucks right now. And still be cap compliant at the end of the year, whether it's Fabian Lysell or they sign Tyler Johnson. People are worried about banking cap space. Once they get the roster set, it's just a matter of putting Johnny Beecher, Mason Lohrei, and Matthew Poitras in Providence on off days as paper transactions and can bank a ton of cap space that way. Because with a 23-man roster, they can put all three in Providence on off days and bank their cap space. And you watch that accumulate. They'll end up with over 5 million bucks in deadline space by doing that.
And I'm guessing that the time that they have off during the season for the Four Nations face off, like the holiday breaks and all that stuff, if they send them down, each of those days counts as accumulating cap space too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm not worried about the cap space when it comes to the team. I think to your point, it's just a matter of, is it going to be Johnson? Do they give Lysell a look first? Where do they feel? Where do they stand on that? And that's the big question that we just don't know. We know it's going to be one or the other.
If it's Johnson and they keep Poitras on the second line right wing, you now have a decision. And to me, it's pretty easy. Is Morgan Key or Justin Brazeau coming out of the lineup to make room for Johnson? And right now, the decision rather easily is Geeky.
Yeah, I would agree with that
So
100%.
now you have to decide, is Johnson the centerman or is Frederick the centerman? And Johnson goes to left wing. They might even be willing to try Johnson on right wing with Coyle and Marchand and leave Frederick, Poitras, and Brazeau together.
Yeah, that they can try that. I have no doubt they would try that and then potentially go because they want Matthew Poitras as a center. Of course they do. But at the end of the day, it's what's best for the team to try to win now. And if that means putting Poitras on the wing for this year, they will do it. So, yeah, as Big Bad Bruin Joe says, Gigi is a black hole in this team right now. It's unfortunate. I think he can find his game again. It's just right now he is the weak link on that offense. And then Mike's Good Music says, speaking of cap space, I'm sure you've covered this before, but what is the money difference if Korpisalo is in Providence and DiPietro is in Boston? If Korpisalo blows up, of course.
Well, they saved $1,075,000 by sending Korpisalo down. That's the maximum you can put in the American Hockey League. Everything else above that counts towards the cap, minus the $795,000 that DiPietro was making. So really, you're saving about $200,000.
And last time I checked, I'm going to pull it up again, but Providence, I mean, of the two, DiPietro has definitely been the better goaltender, but Providence
Right
overall,
now.
yeah, right now. they're looking a lot like Boston. They've had discombobulated moments, like they've had moments of clarity and moments of looking good, but overall, I mean, DiPietro has basically been the equivalent of Jeremy Swayman down there. He's 4-1, 1.34 goals against average. You still got to get Brandon Bussey to find his game. You still got to get Korpisalo to get back on track. I'm not sure that that's a move that really curves the needle for the Boston Bruins.
No,
for this year.
no, it doesn't. Ideally, you want guys like Geeky, you want guys like Corpusalo working themselves back. Um, we've seen it with Lori a couple of times bounce back. Um, Actually, the whole defense really bounced back Saturday night against Toronto, with the exception of maybe Charlie McAvoy. I'm sorry to say. You know, you want these guys to find their game. Unfortunately, I don't know how much more rope you can give to Morgan Geeky without having to make the switch.
Yeah, that's the fine line I think right now that Monty is trying to juggle of giving him time, letting him play through it and sort things out versus you're costing us games that we need to win. Kevin jumps in. Welcome in, Kevin. He says, I'd keep Poitras, Brazeau, and Freddie together and put Johnson on the second right wing. Again, something that we just talked about. I think they'll give that a try. We know Monty's going to try friggin' any combination and everything that he can just to try to get people going who aren't going right now. So is that what they end up with 17 games into that lineup? Who the hell knows? But
I think right now, like I said earlier, Brad Marchand and Charlie Coyle played their best games of the season Saturday night with Matthew Poitras on wing. You've got to ride that and see how far it takes you before you consider making the switch.
absolutely, 100%. I'm with you on that. I will say, because you were talking about the bounce back that the defense had, Justin Brazeau come back, getting scratched, and then coming back in and playing, and he's responding to coaching. He's like, I'm really curious to see because he's in a contract year too right now. Let's not forget that. So he's playing for a contract. He's playing well. When his play dips, they send him the message, and he gets it. Like, I kind of want to see what they do to try to maybe bring him back. Not right. Like, I wouldn't offer them a contract tomorrow, but I mean, if he's going to take to coaching this way, that's the kind of player you want on your roster.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Brazeau isn't the kind of guy you sign in October to an extension. He's the guy you wait to the off season. So
100%.
let's see what kind of year he has.
Yeah, I'm just saying, as far as the coachability of the player, that's important. Let's see. Kevin says, in my honest opinion, I just don't think this team is good enough. They are a piece or two away from being able to actually contend. That is a great point from Kevin here. And I know we're months away, but based on what we've seen so far, and you add Tyler Johnson into the lineup, let's operate under the assumption that it looks better. Not necessarily perfect, but better. If you're Don Sweeney, do you look at this team as a team to invest in for trying to make a cup run?
Yes. Simply because I'm not in the same boat as everybody else. I mean, nobody was expecting this, whereas I was warning from the beginning, wait until this team gets through October before they even drop the puck on the season. I tried to warn everybody, October is not going to be pretty. So, uh, yes, I think that actually that they will get there. That come trade deadline, Don Sweeney is going to be looking to make an addition.
I I I think come that time frame, you're 100% correct. It's a slow start. We're not used to this because they've come out of the gate under Montgomery with their asses on fire, and I think he's what, like 12-2 in his first 14 games of the season collectively over the last 2 years. So like we're not used to this, but the fact that they're going through it is not necessarily the worst thing. I mean, again, I will point to Edmonton from last year. They came out of the gate like a like absolute dog shit, and then they're in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. So I'm not hitting the panic button right now because this is a lineup that once they start to click up and down, forward one through players 1 through 23 on that roster, this is a solid playoff team. I don't think they give a flying fuck where their record is in the regular season. They just want to get in the playoffs.
I look at it like this, and this was my thoughts in the preseason. Nikita Zadorov is coming to a new team. One shift he's out there with Charlie McAvoy. The next shift he's out there with Andrew Peak. He's out on the PK with Brandon Carlo. He's playing with three guys he's never played with before. He's having a hard time forming chemistry with one, let alone with all three of them. So I knew it was going to take time. Elias Lindholm was injured, uh, missed a lot of training camp, missed a lot of the preseason, didn't get an opportunity to form any chemistry with Pasternak and Zaka. Like I said last night, they looked much better, had plenty of offensive zone time, puck possession time. Their analytics don't look good, but I throw the analytics from the first 8 games of the season away um, because of that. um, Marchand Coyle, revolving door of right wingers, all of them did not work until Saturday night when they threw Poitras out there. There's Matt Poitras played 30 games last year before being shut down.
Yeah.
This is new to him. Um, there was a lot to work through in the month of October. They will get there.
And you only mentioned Zadorov. Like Mason Lohrei only played part of the year here last year. Andrew Peak came in at the trade deadline. Parker Wotherspoon was a part-time defenseman last year for the team. Don't get me wrong, he played well. Andrew Peak played well. Lohrei played well, but they're still getting used to these roles as full-time on this defensive unit. There is no
Yes,
Matt Grizzly.
but Mason Lohrei played with Charlie McAvoy. He played with Brandon Carlo. He played with Andrew Peak. He wasn't coming in brand new, having not
No,
played with any of them like Zadorov has. That's what I'm talking about.
absolutely, absolutely. And on the front end, like you said, there's even more. Like Zaka's now kicked over to the wing as his primary position. He's not down the middle anymore. Justin Brazeau last year only played 19 games with the team. Like, yes, he was here last year, but for a large sample, I wouldn't call 19 games that. So, you're also working in, a new backup goaltender, two guys on your fourth line that haven't been here before. You mentioned Max Jones. Like, there's just so much to the cohesion of a team that hasn't that the foundation is still being built right now. Matrix mentions that Peak has looked really good so far, which, I mean, for what you're looking for from him, I would agree. Overall, he's looked pretty good.
Yeah, the analytics aren't great, but a lot of that is because the team hasn't looked great.
Absolutely. And let me see where Bear Force mentioned back here, we need a top 6 forward we could afford at the deadline. Someone like Talk or Kempe. Easier said than done. That's the key, is it's easier said than done. Plus, you also don't really have a good feeling right now for who's going to be available out there. There's just so much that's going to change for a lot of teams. And as 10 Shots mentions, facing the adversity now rather than later, that's kind of where they're at right now. Let's see, where else? I know I've got a couple other comments here. Michael, thoughts on McAvoy? Can you describe how McAvoy plays when he's at his best?
When he's at his best, he's physical. He's an excellent shutdown defender. He transitions the puck, and he can make plays from the offensive blue line when he's at his best.
I don't think we've seen him at his best this year. I really don't.
No, we haven't.
Kevin said, last night's game showed me how much of a difference maker Matthew Poitras can be. Not that I didn't know that already, but man, that kid is special.
Well, if you spent more time listening to me, Kevin, then you would. Well, you said you already knew that, so there you go.
Absolutely. I mean, that kid is. I mean, we saw it last year. They have something in him. I love the work ethic, and you can see it in how he carries himself in those interviews and stuff like that. So, let's see, where else do we want to go? Lots of angles where we can go with this team, but
well, let's go with Elliot Friedman from the intermission last night.
Absolutely.
You got the clip there for those that don't get to watch Hockey Night in Canada.
Absolutely. We got a nice little nugget from Elliot here. Let me know if you can hear the sound.
Okay, Ron. First of all, Brad Marchand, the captain of the Bruins. The team's been struggling, but he's had a strong week, completely diffusing any controversy about the exchange last week with Jim Montgomery on the bench in Utah with an assist in a game the Bruins need to have tonight. The word is that the Bruins and Marchand are getting closer on an extension expected to be 3 years. We'll see what happens in the next little bit, but the word is they are getting closer. In Montreal.
Interesting stuff. Have you got Brad Marchand's response? And then we'll dissect this.
Absolutely. I'm pulling that one up right now, too. There we go.
Elliot Friedman reported that you're close to an extension. Any comment?
Elliot likes talking about me this week, eh? Yeah, I mean, I mentioned this before. I'm not big about talking about contract stuff in the media. I'm not going to do it, but I mean, that report from Elliot is false. But I am not going to talk about my contract stuff in the media. But if I was signed a 3-year extension, if he signed, it just clearly Elliot is just wrong there. So that's about it.
Guys, pasta's available.
Okay. Real quick,
So,
want to blast through the comments real quick?
yeah,
Really?
turn up your volumes down, Chris.
Oh, sorry. Let's see. Kevin's really the one here. I think Marchand is fibbing. Friedman don't miss like that.
Here's my take. Elliot Friedman will not put anything out there unless he's heard something. So I'm going to go with Friedman here and say he's heard something. But Marchand shut it down so quickly that you have to believe that Friedman is wrong on the terms.
That's where I'm at. I'm at.
And I think Marchand is just giving it to Friedman because of what happened earlier in the week with the on 32 Thoughts with Montgomery and Marchand on the bench.
And there was the little jab in there in humor. If I signed a 3-year extension, it'd be announced right now. The fact that he targets on the 3-year term is where I'm with you on that. I think it's the term that they're talking about an extension. They're not crazy far off, but I'd be interested to see if it's probably a 1 or 2 year deal versus a 3 deal.
Yeah, we already know Don Sweeney's said that they've had communication with his camp. So we know the discussions are ongoing. So like I said, Friedman doesn't put anything out there unless he's heard something.
Absolutely. And Matrix is a good point. More than anything, if there's any validity to it, I want to know what the AAV is.
Yeah.
So that's the question. What would you want the AAV to look like? Now, Kevin is saying go year to year. Hopes Friedman is wrong that it's not a 3-year term. He wants him to go year to year. Where does your mind go on a new contract for Brad Marchand?
I want to go year to year too, a 35+ contract with bonuses.
Yeah, and Bear Force says he thinks Marshy takes a discount to stay with the team. Michael adds, I'll take Marchand 3 years. He is the culture, the tenacity on his game. Winner is exactly why you sign him. There's a lot of reasons why you sign a guy like Brad Marchand, and I don't think we've seen enough yet this year to say his game is on a drastic decline. Again, what's also a discount for a 36-year-old winger who's the best or one of the top 2 shorthanded goal scorers in your entire franchise's 100-year history? You know, he's been a captain for multiple years. Like, what's a discount rate for that guy? I think your best option is to go year to year, build in some of those bonuses, and it allows you to kind of project out based on, okay, this other free agent became available. If you take a little less in salary and we bonus it in, and that can carry over to the following year, we have X amount of dollars to go after this other player and make the team better. So he gets that. I don't see the point in going with a 3-year AAV, a 3-year contract with an unknown AAV at the time and bring him to, as Bear Force says, to his year 40 season. Kevin adds, I don't think you need to go 3 years. He wants to be here, finish his career here. I have no doubt he's looking to take discount year to year based on play and where he's at.
Yeah, I don't disagree, Kevin. It's just I don't know. Like I said, I believe Friedman has heard something. I just don't believe it's the 3 years is correct.
I'm just curious again to the dollar amount. Matrix is throwing out 3 million AAV per year. I don't know. There's a lot when it comes to this team about contracts going into next season. I don't know how many of them I really look to address right now during the season. You got Marchand, you got Freddie, Geeky will be an RFA, Beecher will be an RFA, Kostelic, same thing. And then on the back end, Lohrei and Wotherspoon. I mean, glad that you got the contract done.
They've already had communication with Frederick's camp.
Yep. Yeah, I'm just saying as far as like trying to hammer out dollar amount. I mean, Trent Frederick is someone that I would think you want here for a long time. What would you go term for his next deal? He's 26 right now.
For who?
6 years. Trent Frederick.
No, I'm not going that long.
4 years?
3 years. Three tops.
Okay. Keep him sub 30, let him hit free agency. What's the dollar figure that you're looking at? If he's at 2.3 right now.
I don't know. Chris, I got to see how the season plays out. Like right now, he's worse than what he's making now.
Yeah, and as Kevin says, I
How
can
can
see.
he be worth more than $2 million right now?
I don't think he
Yeah,
is.
right. So it's unfair to ask me what's the how much would I be willing to pay him? Right now, I'd be willing to pay him less than $2 million a year. Ask me in June when he's had the season done.
Kevin also adds I could see
Kevin,
$3 million.
Kevin, I pulled your comment up for a reason. I don't have the CBA in front of me, but I'm pretty sure on a 35 plus contract, it has to be 1 year at a time for bonuses.
I think he means
Don't
$3
quote me
million.
on it. Oh,
I think he means $3 million salary, and then bonuses above that based off of
got
1
it.
year deal.
Sorry, Kevin, misunderstood.
Wrong, but as far as I'm aware, you're right on the way that a 35 plus contract with bonuses is structured. I believe it has to go year to year. I don't believe it can be a multi-year deal because it carries the cap hit over. And as
Right.
Bear Force points, can't see them re-signing Geeky based on his current play. See, I can see Kevin.
Again, Bear Force. It's like Chris tried to corner me earlier. Right now, but talk to me June when the season's over, when I know what type of season he's had. I'm not basing a season on 9 games. Everybody's ready to jump off Tobin Bridge because of the start the Bruins have had and the team has had. But I told you before the puck dropped on the season, October is not going to be a good month.
I remember when you
So
were saying that.
I'm not saying anything about anybody's contract 8 games into the season.
I remember when you were saying that. So it's interesting. And I will say, I think it's funny because with all this panic, they're 4 points out of first place. So win 2 games and you're immediately tied with the Florida Panthers, assuming they don't win theirs.
Don't they have a game in hand too?
They do. So realistically, you win your game in hand and you're third place. Let's see. That's right. If Geeky ends with 15 to 20 goals, will be a different story. Absolutely. Kevin says, yeah, the only contract I can really foresee without the season playing out is Martian due to age and his willingness to take a discount.
Exactly. But Kevin, let me throw this out. Is it not cheaper for them to sign Trent Frederick now with the season he's having than wait till June if he gets it all together?
Oh,
It's a
yeah,
fine
no, they
line.
money. I mean, they could save money signing Justin Brazeau now. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. I agree with you, though. I don't think 9 games is enough for this year, especially for some of these guys. Again, Brazeau last year, 19 games. So he's up to less than 30 games right now. Are you going to offer him a contract based off of 30-game sample size in the National Hockey League? I'm not. I'm going to wait. Kevin says, I'm glad I don't freak out over this anymore. If they lose, they lose. I just love hockey.
Exactly.
Kevin, welcome to a Zen-like state. And 200% cheaper. Absolutely agree.
I don't know if you can see that. Craig Eagles just sent me that. He was with Loke Johansson, who scored his first QMJHL goal today. As Moncton's won 3 out of 3 games this weekend, all on the road, and continues to tear up the Quebec League.
I thought I saw a comment earlier. I might have overlooked it about Loke Johansson scoring his first goal. So Good for the kid, though. That's awesome. Bear Force says, good point, Tom. Sign Frederick now. Could be a smart move. Maybe. Maybe. Because if this is the Trent Frederick that you get, not a smart move. Michael says, what should Frederick be offering more so than Kostelic?
Leadership for one. He should be offering more offense. He should, at the very least, be offering the same amount of physicality. And he should be standing up for his teammates as much as Stellick.
Do you think the scoring that we're seeing out of the players on the fourth line, Kostelic and Tufte primarily, is this, I don't want to say going to last all year, because I don't think that those projections of a fourth line guy with 50 points on the season is realistic. But do you think they can continue some level of consistent offense the way they are? Or do you see them going a stretch of 10, 12, 15 games where maybe they're not putting up a point, but they're also not giving up points just because they don't have that offensive flair that
I think they can continue to put up points. Maybe not at the pace that they're putting them up now. Look, all three players have high-level IQ. We knew Johnny Beecher had it. We didn't know that Kostelic and Koepke had it because, frankly, Kostelic wasn't given much opportunity in Ottawa, and we really didn't know him. And the same with Koepke. But you can be a fourth-line player in the NHL and have a high level of hockey IQ. High IQ is not reserved for first and second line players. These guys are smart. They know what they need to do. They understand their role on the team. They have great chemistry, and they're only getting better as each game goes on. So, no, I don't believe they can continue at the clip they're on, but I believe they can continue to put up points, especially when they're so much better than any other fourth line they can go up against.
I was just going to say, would you make the case that this is the top fourth line in the entire league?
Yes. Name me one that's better.
And that's a level they can maintain.
Yeah. They can all three of them can skate. All three of them can play the cycle game. They can all forecheck. They can all back check. They're very solid in the defensive zone. I see no reason why. Now, unless they get broken up for some reason, different story.
What did you think of them moving Koepke up to the left side on the third line? I know it didn't last very long.
Look, a lot of what we saw last night, like seeing Patra with Pasternak out there for a shift and Koepke on the third line for a shift, it was to get them ice time after, I believe in this case, was the double minor. No, it wasn't. Patra was thrown out there immediately after the double minor because he got no PP time. I think Koepke went out right after that. But right after the Bruins kill a penalty, they usually throw Patra out there with Pasternak to get them. You don't want these guys sitting for 3 minutes.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
with
it's like,
stoppages, that's just hockey time. In actual time, it's 5+ minutes with stoppages.
absolutely. Brandon jumping in. I'm going to get back to one of Kevin's comments here. He says, once Johnson eventually signs, who should come out of the lineup based off last night's game against the Leafs? So Brandon just jumping in with his first comment. We were talking about it before. I think we both landed on Morgan Geekie.
Yeah.
Let's see. Kevin said he was talking about how he doesn't freak out the way he used to. He said, like, the Bruins lost to Utah, and I wasn't freaking out. I was like, wow, this team left Arizona and looks so damn good now. Happy for them. And then Bear Force adds in that Utah just seems like more of a hockey market than Arizona. I know you've talked to a number of people around the league. I'm sure at some point you've had conversations about the Arizona market, and I don't know how much you've had conversations about the new Utah market, but just in general, what are your thoughts between the two and just how that team looks so revitalized this year?
Well, I don't think moving to Utah has any effect on the on-ice product. I think the on-ice product would have been the same in Arizona because it's the same team and they're building towards the same thing. It's the same general manager with the same vision. Uh, the whole hockey ops department is the same, and they have the same vision in Utah as they had in Arizona. That said, I I can't wait till the renovations are done in the arena because it looks spectacular. It really does. And when they get everything set up, let's face it, it's a basketball only arena right now. So changes need to come. But I think it's going to be a fantastic venue. Um, I believe they've already started work on their practice facility. you know, we all saw the difference Warrior made for the Bruins. It'll be the same in Utah. Um, they've got an owner that is willing to spend some money, so all the
That's
power to them.
that's no that I think right there is the key. It wasn't Arizona that was the problem. I mean, I've heard great things about Arizona as a hockey market overall. I think Utah has a little bit of excitement. It's the first 10 games, and we've mentioned before, we've talked about how the the first few months or the first few games for a player, you can carry that for a little while. You might even be able to carry it for a couple seasons with an entire team in a new location. Let's see where they're at 4 or 5 years from now. Again, kind of like Seattle. They had a great second year and they kind of fizzled off since. So let's see where they continue to go. Does it look promising? 100%. But the owner, what you went through in Arizona with ownership was ultimately just a disgrace. I mean, you had hotels that weren't taking the players on, like they weren't accepting them to stay there unless it was prepaid with a bank check because this owner didn't pay all of his bills. That's disgraceful to the entire league. I don't care what team you are. That's just unacceptable. That's what's backing this team right now. That's what's reinvigorated them. New ownership that's excited to spend money on them. Anyway, not a Utah Hockey Club show, but did want to just touch on that. Let's see. Kevin says, well, Dom, going from playing in Mullet Arena to an actual arena can do a lot for teams' confidence. They could have a boost from feeling like they're in an actual NHL. We'll call it the real NHL now, as another team or coach once called it. So real quick, we've got a couple comments in here about Kostelic being part of the Linus Ullmark trade. So just to touch on those, I won't read every single one of them, but as far as the Linus Ullmark trade, Linus has been injured for the Senators. You've got Kostelic as part of it. We all know they took Dean Letourneau, and now you've got Korpisalo as your number 2. Revisiting that trade, are you happy with what they got so far?
I was never unhappy with it.
Are you happier? Let's rephrase.
I'm unhappier for one reason, and that's because Allmark re-signed.
Fair.
Let's face it. If he was willing to re-sign with Ottawa when the trade was made, the trade looks different. He wasn't, and now he's re-signed. So in that sense, I'm unhappier. But I was never unhappy with the trade when it was made. I'm not unhappy about it now, other than that fact.
Yeah, that extension really would have helped. I remember when we were talking about that. That extension really would have helped Boston in that deal. So, Anyway, we got about 20, 25 minutes left in tonight's show. I know we've covered a lot already. Where else do you want to go tonight? What else have you got that you want to talk about for this Bruins?
There's some happy news that involves a member of the Bruins management. Why don't you play the clip, Chris?
Let me get that pulled up real quick. There it is. I have to dig it out because there we go.
And now,
It doesn't download the same way as some of the other ones, so there we go. Let's get this going.
ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to the banner as we raise Jamie's name to the rafters to hang alongside other Peterborough Pete's legends.
So, Dom, you want to just kind of share for those on the audio side what we've got there?
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up one more time for tonight's special guest, Jamie Langenbrunner, and all of our special guests. Congratulations, Jamie. It is an honor to have you all here with us this evening.
A great ceremony as Jamie Langenbrunner's name is brought to the rafters here at the Peterborough Memorial.
All right.
So for those that are listening and couldn't watch, Bruins assistant general manager Jamie Langenbrunner had his number retired by the Peterborough Petes in the Ontario Hockey League. He played 2 seasons for them. I'm just guessing here. It was like 140 games or something where he put up over a point per game. I think spent 16 years in the NHL. And here's a guy who was known as an offensive player, completely adjusted his game for longevity in the league. This is what we hope guys like Trent Frederick are able to do later in their career. Just felt that Mr. Langenbrunner deserved a mention on this show for a well-deserved honor. And I think the Bruins are lucky to have him in the position he's in with the team right now.
Yeah, and I think the fact that someone can play somewhere, the banner said, 93 to 95. So you're thinking, yes, that's 4 seasons?
2.
So 2, 93, 93, 94. Yeah, we'll call it 2. But to think someone makes that kind of impact in the 2 seasons that they're there, to the point where the organization honors you in that way, goes to show what he did for him.
Yep.
So, like you said, it's not all dark news in the Boston sphere right now. But I do want to also point this out. Once we got that going, Michael asked a great question here, and Kevin kind of gave a short little answer, but I know you can probably add to it. His question is, what's the difference between what makes a fourth liner and what makes a third liner? To which Kevin really just kind of sums up in one word of skill.
Well, Kevin's right. That's the difference, the biggest difference. But ideally, teams look at what they want from their fourth line differently than what other teams do. Some teams just want them to go out and provide energy, be physical, like the Toronto Maple Leafs. They don't expect Ryan Reeves to go out there and score 10 goals and have 20 assists. They expect him to go out there and smash heads or bodies. The Bruins, whether it was under Bruce Cassidy or Claude Julien or now Jim Montgomery, want them to be able to play a little bit of offense, want them to kill penalties, want them to provide energy, and want to be able to trust them in a defensive role, not afraid to go up against the other team's top line. So it depends a lot on the coaching philosophy, on what you want out of them. But as Kevin says, the biggest difference is skill.
See, I knew you could elaborate on the answer a little bit more. It's going to vary from team to team. A lot of things do, but it's what we talk about when we're referring to a team's identity. What are you looking for out of each line, and how can they best get there? Like Lindholm, Pastrnak, Zacha, that's not a line that you're looking to go out there and, wreak havoc, cause fights, and all that crap. You want them to go out and score. So I was just going to pull up Kevin's next question, which is, if you had to remove one contract from the Bruins, which one would it be and why? I think Bear Force has a popular, a lot of folks. He says Max Jones would be his choice.
Everyone's going to say Korpisalo, or the majority of people. And my response to that is, okay, who's the backup goalie? Because it certainly isn't Brandon Bussi when everybody was writing him in. So it's not Korpisalo. And I'm sorry to say, guys, it's not Max Jones for me. Again, guy who missed most of camp and most of preseason and is still not up to speed. And I only say that because I know what type of player he's capable of being, and I want to see if he can get there. To me, $1 million, I can just put him in Providence. Don't need to get rid of that contract. Right now, if you're asking me, I would say Morgan Geekie. The cap hit makes a difference at $2 million, and he's not playing up to expectations. So to me, it would be Morgan Geekie.
Yeah, now here's the question. Can I just get rid of the contract and keep the player? Because if that's the case, then I'd go Frederick, because I'd rather him at a lot less money. But, yeah, no, I think Geekie is the guy. I think you could make a reasonable case, at least with the way he's come out of the gate, for Charlie Coyle, because his contract is at the 5.25. But we know he's got a much higher ceiling, so I wouldn't necessarily jump right to him.
Now, there might be others out there that might be thinking Andrew Peeke. And yeah, $2.75 million, he's overpaid. Could Waterspoon give you what Peak is giving you every single night? I don't think so, to be honest with you.
I got one other one, and I'm curious. I want to get it out there before Kevin writes in his, because he says his is going to be controversial. What about Nikita Zadorov?
No, I don't.
Even at $5 million?
Even at $5 million, I don't.
So I'm curious to see where Kevin's going with this one, because he says his is going to be controversial. So, Kevin, lay it on us. I knew it. It's Zadorov, and here's why. Like the player, don't get me wrong, but he's going to be your third pairing guy moving forward. The penalties are a killer, and I think he's worthless. I knew he was going to go there.
Well, he hasn't taken a penalty in the last 2 games. He absolutely destroyed a couple of Toronto players last night. The fact is, they needed a defenseman. They needed a centerman. They went out and got the best 2 in free agency that were available. And unfortunately, when you do that in free agency, you are overpaying. That was the cost to get Nikita Zadorov. That was the cost to get Elias Lindholm. If you didn't do that, just imagine where this roster would be right now. So
I agree.
I can't get rid of the contract knowing that's what it was going to cost to get them. So to me, they're out of play.
Michael even says
you're getting closer to a $5 million Nikita Zadorov than you're getting a $2 million Morgan Geekie.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And Michael says, I feel I need to see Zadorov in the playoffs first before deciding. 100%. And then Kevin adds in, I know exactly why they did it. Trust me, it's just a hypothetical thing. I enjoy Zadorov being on this team. And then 10 Shots asks, does Max Jones get traded away? And I'm going to go
Okay,
with
let me answer that with a question. Would you trade for Max Jones right now?
no.
Okay, so why would anybody trade for him?
That's why I'm saying no. I don't think he gets traded anywhere. He's the type of player that if I have any interest in him right now, if I'm Chicago, if I'm Utah, I don't care. Name the team, with the exception of Anaheim, because they already had him. If I have any interest in Max Jones, I just go, you know what? I'll set my alert up for when he hits the waiver wire.
Yeah. If.
Now, if he starts playing better and you think that he can get to a different level on your team that he's blocked from in Boston, okay, then maybe I'm picking up the phone going, hey, 7th rounder so I can make sure I get him. But other than that, it's not even a thought. I don't see any team sitting here going, Max Jones is the guy we got to go after. It just doesn't fit.
Now, the next comment is absolutely bang on, because Max Jones should have gone down to Providence on a conditioning stint. Absolutely should have, in my mind.
Can they still send him down?
Jones,
Is that? Go ahead.
if he sits out enough games now, they can send him down on a conditioning stint. And Kevin, he's on a 2-year contract, $1 million each year.
So, just if you could, for those who don't know, what does it take for a player to need to go or to qualify to be able to go to the American Hockey League for a conditioning stint? Because if I understand it correctly, while they're in the American Hockey League, they still count towards that team's cap.
Correct. So needs to either be coming off of an injury, and or has not dressed in so many games. I don't know what the number is off the top of my head that he could go down on a conditioning stint. He would need to approve to go down. And in Max Jones' case, I don't know why he would say no, because it's a surefire way of getting up to speed.
Yeah, I feel like it would be a good option for him. I don't know why they didn't take advantage of doing that, but it is what it is. We're at where we are and can't really do much about it at this point. Um, let's see. I don't think we have a single bad contract on this team. Kevin points out. No, to Dom's point, Lindholm and Zadorov are the ones that you're going to make the case that, yeah, we're overpaying a little bit. But to his point, that's what happens when you fill your holes through free agency. You overpay.
I don't know, Kevin. Like, I hear the Corpusalo contract is bad. I hear the Pete contract is bad. I hear the Lindholm contract is bad. I hear the Zadorov contract is bad. Um, you know,
When
um,
you immediately go to the Corpusalo, and I know I've heard all the same things. Every contract on this team is bad. I've heard Hampus Lindholm sucks at defense, and they should ship him out and trade him for a bag of like. I've heard it all too. I'm with you, but Corpusalo having 3 years after this, cost controlled at $3 million for your number two goaltender. That's a great contract for a number
well,
two goaltender.
we've been over it 1,000 times, Chris.
I know.
It's
I'm
what
just saying that
it's
who on a bad
you know
contract, stop listening to him.
it's like beating a dead horse. I don't listen to them. I'm just telling you what's out there because I
Oh,
did you hear what Marty St. Louis' comments were today when or yesterday, I believe it was, when he was asked about the Montreal Canadiens critics?
no, I didn't.
He
I
said he said something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing here, critics, why would I care about what somebody I would never approach for their opinion for as to what they say?
yeah, which is completely a fair point. I'm
Yep.
with him. I get it. If you're not going to go to him for advice, why would you take criticism from him?
Yeah.
Actually, here's a good question from Michael. Actually, real quick, Matrix says 2 or 3 years from now, when the cap is 100 million, these contracts are going to be chump change. They got a lot of contracts that they got to keep worrying about over the next couple of years, though. Michael, then percentage wise, are we spending too much at a certain position? Which is a good question. I'm going to pull up the
Michael,
breakdown. But
when the cap first came out in 2005, I came out with a system on what teams should be spending per position, percentage wise. Now, every NHL team uses some form of that. The question is, what are the percentages?
I have them.
Because no, that's not the percentages I'm asking for, Chris.
Oh, gotcha.
What are the percentages that work? And every team will have a different model. I don't believe you should be spending more than 10% on goaltenders. Well, the Bruins are spending over 10%. I don't believe that they should be spending what they're spending on defense, but they are. Other teams see it differently. So, to answer your question, Michael, it depends on the team because they have. I mean, you look at the Leafs; they clearly think they should be spending a higher percentage than most teams on their forwards. So, yeah, I believe there should be a system, but nobody can tell me what that system is.
Yeah,
Even
it's
though I was
certainly,
one of the first to come up with it.
yeah. Well, and it's funny that you mentioned it depends on the team. So, as an example, and we'll use the two that you mentioned, Boston and Toronto. Boston's percent of cap hit on their forward group, 13 forwards, takes up 50.7% of their cap. All right, totaling 44,605,000. Okay. Toronto, 13 forwards in their group, totals 63,031,770 for 71.6% of the cap. That's a huge difference. Now,
Mhm.
contrast, goaltending, the Bruins are at 12.8% of their cap, and the Maple Leafs are at 3.7% of their cap. Now, there's also a huge difference between Anthony Stolarz and Joseph Wall and Jeremy Swayman and Jonas Korpisalo. So we'll see. Kevin says, when I look at a contract being bad, I think of Suter in Minnesota. We have zero of that here. Absolutely. Don Sweeney doesn't sign that bad of a contract. He doesn't. He avoids them.
This next comment.
ML says, if Jones was sent down for a conditioning stint but remains on the Boston cap, then we still wouldn't be able to sign Tyler Johnson. As is, I suspect he will be signed by Tuesday morning.
Well, that's incorrect. Because Max Jones is on the cap right now. And the Bruins have enough room to sign Tyler Johnson right now. So Jones is sent down on the conditioning stint. He remains on the cap that he's already counting against now, and the Bruins will still have the room to sign Tyler Johnson.
Yeah, the biggest thing that was stopping him from signing Tyler Johnson 4 days ago was they didn't
Was
have the
Tufte.
roster.
No, they didn't have the roster spot or the cap space. They needed to waive somebody. And they did, and Tufte cleared, and Providence went down, or he went down to Providence. So now they have the roster spot and the cap space.
Michael says, although we are still paying Mike Riley, he is at 1.5% of our cap at $1.3 million, and this is the last year of that, Michael. I wouldn't really call that a bad contract. Did it hurt him for a little bit? Sure, it wasn't as great as we thought it was, but at the time he signed that deal, that looked like a good contract.
Or decent. I wouldn't say it looked
decent. Okay. MLSS is saying he meant to say Tufte. If Tufte was sent down, but he wasn't sent
Tufte,
down.
Tufte is sent down.
Yeah. So, as of right now, they 100% can sign Tyler Johnson. They can call it Fabian Lysell. They have a lot of actual wiggle room now that they've sent Tufte down to Providence. They just have one roster spot to do it. That's all. Let's see. I had their schedule here. When do you think Johnson signs?
Tomorrow.
I was going to say, since he's been with the team already, do you think he does it before the game? Like, there's no need. If he signed on Tuesday, is he eligible to play in the game Tuesday night?
Yeah. Yeah, as long as it's registered by 5 p.m.
Would they gain, hypothetically, if they waited until Tuesday, submitted the contract on Tuesday, would they gain the cap space accruing for Monday and Tuesday if they waited?
No, they would gain Mondays.
Okay. I'm not saying that's the difference. I'm just saying, like, Evan Gold, Don Sweeney, they would walk that fine line.
Yeah, they'll wait till the last possible minute. If they want him Tuesday, they'll sign him Tuesday. I think it's going to happen Tuesday.
I think he's on the team by Tuesday.
Or sorry,
by Monday.
I think
tomorrow.
it happens tomorrow.
And we'll be here if it does, because we've got the prospects to talk about tomorrow. So,
yes.
We've got that coming up. Same time, 6:30, same location. Follow us right here on YouTube, Twitter. We're on Twitch. Let's see. I didn't even realize that we're just about at 8 o'clock now. Big Bad Bruins Joe says $3 million for him, referring to Mike Riley. Was an abysmal contract. Go back and look at the statistics that he had going into signing that contract, and it really wasn't abysmal. He played really well next to Carlo the year prior, and it looked like he was going to be able to keep that up. So abysmal, I think, is an overstatement. It didn't work out, but it could have been a lot worse if he signed for more than that. Let's see. Matrix says, how much cap accrued on a daily basis percentage-wise? It's what, 100?
I'm not sure what you mean percentage-wise. And I've how can I explain this? I've never calculated how much cap is accruing daily, because that's not the way it works. The way it works is for every single day out of the 192 days in the season, every day you figure out what the cap hit is for the team that day. So today's roster, I take today's roster, calculate the cap, and whatever cap space they have left based on today's roster, you take that answer, which today is $1,460,000, and divide it by 42, because that's how many days are left in the season after trade, and then multiply that answer by 192, and that gives you the AAV that can be added on trade deadline day, which works out to $5,067,246. So in other words, $1,100 today is worth $5 million on trade deadline. So they're not accruing every day. It's just your cap hit that day using the formula I give you is what they're banking. So tomorrow they could have 23 different guys on the roster, waive everybody, and you'd have a totally different answer. You're on mute, Chris.
It's not a matter of banked cap space as much as it is available based on that roster in that time frame. If they make no roster moves between now and the deadline, this is where they're at. This is how much they can add based on that formula. If that makes sense. It's not like today they added $75, tomorrow they added $1,000, and it doesn't add up in that.
Well, it is. It's just calculated every day based on the roster every day.
Right. Well, hopefully that helps, because I'm sure, Matrix, you're not the only one who had that question. So with that, it is just past 8 o'clock. And again, your Bees they're sitting there in 5th place with 9 points, tied at 500 with Toronto and with Buffalo. and only Tampa and Florida have more points in the division. I'm not panicked. I don't think you are either, Dom. I don't want to put those words in your mouth, but
Never was.
panicked isn't the word I would use. And you've got the game in hand. So for now, just like Kevin said, sit back, enjoy it, just enjoy the hockey. And I got nothing else other than go Bees.